Hi, my name's Andrew from CAEexamtips.com, and today I'm going to talk about the difference between the computer-based and paper-based Cambridge exams. Which one is right for you? So I had a request from Eneha Henknehunha, who asked me this question. Can you describe in more detail the difference between the paper-based and the computer-based variants of the exam? Both options are available for me and I can't choose. So at the end of this video, I hope that you'll be able to make a decision. So what's different? First of all, something that's exactly the same is the exam. So all the texts, the questions, the audio, that's all exactly the same. Students sometimes say to me, "Oh, Andrew, which one's easier?" And I'm like, yeah, it's the same. It's the same exam, the same content. And you have the same amount of time for each section as well. So completely fair, whether you get it on, whether you do the paper-based or the computer-based version. The price. I live in Switzerland at the moment, and the price is slightly different. Very, very, very slightly. So the paper-based is 400 francs and the computer-based is 410 francs. So as a percentage, I think it's like 0.05%, like really, really small difference. So I wouldn't base my decision on that, but you need to check where you live if there's a difference in price. I doubt there will be a big difference. When it comes to the parts of the test, you've got reading, writing, use of English, listening, speaking. Some of those are different, of course, but the speaking test is always the same. For most of my students, it's on a different day. So I think normally the speaking test is on a Friday and then the rest of the test is on the next Saturday. So don't expect any difference when it comes to speaking. This is all about the other parts of the exam. So then the main difference comes in the room where you take the exam and the equipment that's in that room. So for the paper-based exam, imagine it's like a big school hall with lots of desks, just like when you were 14, 15 doing your exams. If you're from some crazy country that doesn't have exams like that, then watch Harry Potter. That's what exams look like. That's what the paper-based exam looks like. So because of that, you have this big room. Gets noisy, right? There's a lot of people, so they're all coughing, they're all moving their chairs. Could be annoying, could be distracting. The clock, there will be a clock or two clocks or whatever on the walls, so you'll be looking at them, and that's how you know how much time you have left in a certain part of the exam. Or you can wear a watch, but I don't wear watches. They are itchy. I don't like them. But I would wear a watch for this exam if I was doing the paper-based version. In this big room where you do the paper-based exam, they typically have the CD player for the listening test, like in the corner, and then they just play the audio from that. So they don't necessarily have professional stereo surround sound equipment. So a lot of my students complained that they couldn't hear it very well, that the audio was distorted or that it was too quiet. So you can't control the volume because the examiner does that. And you can ask him to make it louder, to turn it up, and he may or may not do so. So the paper-based is in this big room, but the computer-based is in a small language lab. So, I don't know, maybe maximum 20 people, everybody's got a computer. So because of that, you will get your own headset, your own headphones. So you'll be able to listen to the listening test stuff at whatever volume you want. You can turn it up, you can turn it down. So you have much less like audio distortion. The quality will be much better in that regard. And because you're doing everything on a computer, it tells you how long you have. There's an on-screen clock, there's an on-screen timer. So when you're doing the reading test, it says, oh, you have 8 minutes left. That's useful. Okay, so that solves the clock on the wall problem. If you've been preparing on paper, you've probably been highlighting keywords or underlining things, or crossing out answers that aren't right, crossing out answers that you've used. All those things that you do on paper, you can't do that on the computer. There are some elements, there's like a highlight function, but it's not the same as holding your yellow highlighter and doing that thing. You don't have the same tactile response. If you've been very heavily preparing and the highlighter is a big part of what you do, that's a consideration. Maybe you should think more about doing the paper-based exam. So on the other hand, a lot of my students, they'll start writing their essays for the writing exam. So writing, and then they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that, and they'll cross it out, and sometimes they delete whole paragraphs. And in the computer-based one, you can type, delete, type again, and in the end it's sort of edited as you go, and it will look nice. And if you're like a very messy kind of writer, especially if you don't spend time planning, then the computer-based version might be good for you. Also, as you're writing in the writing test on the computer, it tells you your word count, so that's great. So I think I've covered the main differences, but the final difference might be the most important one, and that's you get your results much faster if you do the computer-based test, because the computer already knows whether your answers are right or wrong. It doesn't tell you on the day, but it doesn't need a human being to check those numbers. A human being just has to do your speaking test and read your writing test, and everything else, they've already finished marking it. So you can get your answers much faster. And for a lot of people, I think that would be a big or the biggest factor in choosing. So who should do the paper-based exam? You should do the paper-based exam if you rely very heavily on highlighting or making notes or something on the paper itself. Or if you've been writing essays longhand and that's the rhythm that you're in, do the paper-based. Do the computer-based exam if you need your results quickly. If you work on the computer all day, like doing emails and stuff in English, and that's just more natural for you. Or if you think that this audio in the large room might be a problem for you. That's it. Watch some more videos. Thanks. Bye. So if you've been very